All right. Hey, everybody. Early show, guys. So I'm here with a very special interview with Tom Taylor, who's currently writing All New Wolverine. You're actually writing a lot of books. Green Lantern, Edge of Oblivion, Batman vs. Superman. I don't know how you do it.
You just sort of give up on sleep and the rest comes naturally.
That is very true. All right. So for this interview, we're actually going to be talking about female representation because I'm working on a documentary right now. First question I have is you write a lot of strong female characters in your books. Why do you find these type of characters so interesting to write?
Look, I think basically, I think there's some people don't realize, particularly people on the internet, which we were talking about earlier, is that 50% of the population are women. So writing about women isn't exactly that unusual. But I guess if we go back, I was raised by a single mother who worked in a women's refuge, and I sort of grew up in and around that as well, and went to a lot of, I was with her at protests and rallies from a very young age for domestic violence and things. So I guess I'm kind of predisposed to write about women. I've had a lot of strong women in my life, from my grandma to my aunties to my mom. So yeah, I guess that's why.
Awesome. So how have you seen female representation change over the decades?
Look, I think it's rapidly changing, and I'm not sure it's over the decades, but it just feels like just recently we're really seeing a great big shift, and it's largely because Hollywood's finally realizing that there's a call for it, that women want to see themselves on screen as well, and in different roles doing different things. So I think I'm really quite it makes me quite happy to see what's happening at the moment, particularly the way it's happening in merchandise. The fact that, we've got characters like Rey in Star Wars who just own that film, and all of the toy companies went, oh my God, we're losing money. we don't have these things in store. So that's fantastic to see, particularly for myself. I mean, I also write television. I write a group of heroes there, and all of them are equally important. So when it comes time for our merchandise to hit, and for my characters that I've created to have toys, I want characters of the whole family, not just the boys.
Yeah, that's awesome. And, since you do work in television, how do you feel about the representation of heroes on TV, like shows like Arrow or Flash or Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.? Like, how do you feel about female representation there?
Quite honestly, I don't watch a lot of television anymore. I'd like to, but as you noted, I write 3 books and a TV show and lots of other things that people don't know about, which you'll hopefully see in the future. So I don't get to watch a whole lot. I do watch Agent Carter, which I absolutely love. I'm really liking that show, and I'm watching the new season of that as well. And I think, female-led shows like that and like Supergirl, they're exactly what we need. And I really hope that audiences come in abundance and just keep watching those shows and tell the people who make the decisions at the top that yes, this is the content we want.
Definitely. So now I feel like Marvel's been very progressive has always been progressive, but for the past 2 years, I think right now they have 17 titles that are female led, or, I might be making up that number, but I'm pretty sure it's close to that. And so All New Wolverine is now part of this kind of movement of more female-led books. So how does it feel to write this, female-led character who was, obviously Laura wasn't, but this title was based on a male character, and now shifting it to a female lead?
Look, I think it makes a lot of sense. It's a really organic change. She is, to all intents and purposes, his daughter and his clone. She has all of his abilities. She makes sense that it would be her. I mean, it's not like she's replacing him. He's actually dead. It's not like she's beaten him up and taken his costume. So I think it's great that she's the one. I think it makes total sense, and I love her as a character. I really, really, really enjoy writing her. I think just learning what her voice is, building on everything that's come before and finding the right voice for her, and then giving her these sisters around her that also have really unique voices that she can protect has been wonderful. But I think, coming back to what you were saying about all of those female-led books at Marvel. I absolutely love this. My son at the moment is obsessed. My eldest, he's reading all the Marvel books because he's got the Unlimited app on his iPad, which he had to get for school. And you know, his favorite books are Squirrel Girl and Spider-Gwen and Silk, and he reads all New Wolverine, which I like. But you know, the books he's reading and Thor. I mean, these are books that he couldn't read 5 years ago because they didn't exist. And these characters really, really appeal to him. And I know they appeal to a really wide audience. So I think it's fantastic what Marvel are doing. And obviously DC's doing that as well. I mean, they've got characters like Black Canary and, you know, the new digital Supergirl as well, which is fantastic with Bengal on art and Sterling Gates. They're realizing and pushing for it. And particularly in comics. Comics are now, I think the last figure was about 48% readership is women. So of course companies are going to write for them and create content for them.
That's awesome. Now going back to All New Wolverine, and you're talking a little bit about the character, but you know, what makes Laura tick? Like, why do you find this character so interesting to write?
I think it's partially how we've set her up, in that she is Wolverine, but she doesn't want to kill. I think that instantly, as soon as you have a character who has knives in their hands, who doesn't want to use them for, you know, permanent damage, I think there's something really fantastic about that. You're immediately setting up a dilemma. And what we've sort of done, and people will start to realize, is there aren't a lot of male characters around her. I mean, we are going to see Old Man Logan soon, so he will be around, but previously, you know, it's the sisters and it's characters like Wasp, and they're fighting against some men, and we've had Doctor Strange, but generally it's a book about a core group of women. And if there's no men in the book, then it's the same book.
That's so
but I just love her as a character. I think she's got a lot of fire, but she's also got a lot of heart and a lot of passion and a lot of empathy. And that's, you know, that can sometimes go missing as people try to write. I guess there are people who try to write strong female characters and just go, well, if they punch someone, then they're strong. But if they actually have to battle something and fight for something and fight for someone and care about things enough to fight for them, it makes them a lot stronger.
Yeah, and you know, I feel like what's so interesting about Laura's character, because I've been reading her since her debut in comics and also in X-Men Evolution. I think it's the psychological aspects. Like, can you explain a little bit about that? Because I feel like with this clone thing, it's very psychological, but I feel like Laura's gone through a lot. So can you kind of explain about that journey?
Well, I guess, yeah. I mean, she has come through so much. She's come through from the facility where she was raised and abused, to living on the streets, to losing her mother, to now losing her father. I mean, she's come through so much adversity, but at no point in time has she become a victim in this. Like, there have been times when she's down, but she's not beaten. She can fight, and there's been times when she's really, you know, angry and violent, but she's never been a character to just sort of turn over and be defeated. And I think from a psychological point of view, you can see that every hit, she just gets back up again and pushes harder. And the fact that none of that has dented her and she can still find a life. And I guess that's what's interesting too. She seems to be getting over a lot of the damage that's been done to her and finding her place in the world. And that's part of writing a character that's this young as well.
Yeah, so I mean, you've written Laura, you've written Rescue for a little while, Black Canary. I mean, the list kind of goes on with the awesome female characters you've written. But what do you think defines a modern female superhero? With a lot of my interviews, I've for this documentary, I've asked, and I feel like some people say, "Is there a definition, or is it a definition that's changing?" But how would you explain the modern female superhero, or just a definition of being a hero in general?
Look, I think I'd probably err on the side of there isn't a definition. I mean, writing good characters, if every character needs to be unique, and if I can write Wolverine and write, say, Squirrel Girl and put the same words in each of their mouths and nobody knows the difference, then it's not about a modern superhero. It's about a modern character. and a character that people can see themselves in. And I think Laura appeals to a lot of women, I guess, who've come from similar places. I mean, when I speak to people and when I hear people who connect with Laura and have connected with her from early days, there seems to be often there's a little bit of, you know, maybe they've had bullying in their lives, or maybe they've had something and they can really see something in Laura that they connect with. And you wouldn't say that about all modern female superheroes.
Yeah, so true. And so, you know, going to conventions and all that, you know, what's the experience of like seeing the fans, you know, react to this book? And also, I mean, especially female fans. You see a lot of female fans react to the book?
Yeah, and I've had female fans come up who are already dressed as her, which I absolutely love. I'm always a massive fan of that. As soon as there's toys, I'll be even happier. Um, but you can probably see the toys on my shelves behind. You can see Harley Quinn and stuff. But yeah, I guess I've seen these fans come up to me and just responding so well. And I think I can't remember a book that I've written that has been so positively, you know, it's just been appreciated by seemingly everybody. I mean, the negativity is coming from the sort of standard places you would expect negativity to come from. I mean, you don't type All New Wolverine into 4chan, for instance, but everywhere else on the internet, it seems like people are happy and readers are happy, and the fans who are contacting me and letting me know what they think about the book are loving it, and they're loving her and they're loving the character that we're sort of coming up with. So that's, you know, it's great. I'm very happy about it.
I'm loving the book also. I've been such a fan of it. So who are some of your favorite female characters to either write that you've written in the past, or characters you just really want to write?
Look, you mentioned some before. I mean, Black Canary, I was kind of surprised when I was writing Injustice just how much she ended up taking over that story. I mean, you read year 2 and really it's a Black Canary and Green Arrow story, and Green Arrow is not even in it. So it is a Black Canary story. And similarly, Harley Quinn. I mean, I liked her before the first time I wrote her, and the first time I wrote her, I just absolutely fell in love with her and just wanted to write her constantly. I mean, especially without the Joker, she's a million times better as a character if she doesn't have that guy around her.
Definitely. And how do you feel about like Harley being in the movies now? Like, are you excited to see her there and see what type of characters she's gonna play?
Look, I think I'm just scared. I think
I think we all are in some way, and hope
yeah,
we're praying.
exactly. I'm very trepidatious. Like, to me, she's a certain character in my head, and her voice is a certain way in my head, and she's, you know, she's very strong and she's very intelligent and she's hurt, but she's come back from that. And I guess with Harley, I just feel very protective of her. So I don't want anybody to do anything bad to her.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So we'll see.
Let's hope it ends up being good. Now, there actually are a lot of female movies coming out. Like Wonder Woman's coming out a couple of, I guess, a year or two, and then Captain Marvel in a lot of years from now. But how do you feel that it's taken like this long for a Wonder Woman movie, or for Marvel since like 2008? I feel like they've had this new wave of movies, and it's taken them this long to create a female lead movie.
It's criminal. It's absolutely ridiculous that it's taking this long. I mean, anybody watching Black Widow in any of those movies, any storytellers will know, okay, particularly Winter Soldier, that is her film. It's, she owns that every bit as much as Steve Rogers does. And I think that it's the fact that it's taken this long. I think there's a lot of people who are very scared, but finally starting to understand. I mean, I think Ryan Reynolds recently said that actually women do watch superhero films. And my wife and I, we don't have a lot in common, but she loves superhero films. She'll go and watch anything. She's like, yeah, I'll go watch a new Avengers or Iron Man or Thor or Deadpool, I'm like, really? Cool, okay, let's do that. And I think the appeal is it's universal. So I think putting those characters out there, and, we talked about Agent Carter and Supergirl, and people are watching those. And then, of course, you do Wonder Woman, and of course you do Captain Marvel, and hopefully Black Widow at some stage. I think it's obvious, but it's things like Mad Max. I mean, the fact that Furiosa was, she was a revelation, and that film was huge. And that's the same with Rey in Star Wars. I mean, nobody, everybody loved her. Everybody loved her, and she carried an entire Star Wars film by herself. And when she wasn't on screen, people were like, where is she?
It's so true.
Yeah, so I think Hollywood is usually takes a little while because they have to make plans years and years and years and years in advance and invest a lot of money, and there's a lot of fear, and there's people up top who, who've always worked a certain way. But hopefully, and it does look like that's changing and changing for the better.
Yeah, I think Star Wars. You're a little echo. That's something that happens with Google Plus. All right, we're good
Right.
now. Okay. Yeah, I think that's something that Star Wars really helped with is to show, yeah, female heroes can make money and a lot of money, and everyone can love her. And I think studios are hopefully changing their ideas with that. Now something I also want to ask, because we kind of talked about merchandise a little bit before, and a big, I don't want to say controversy, but a big discussion is that how a lot of female heroes just don't have a lot of merchandise, and one being like Black Widow being in all these movies, but a lot of times being excluded. So how do you feel about merchandise of female heroes?
Look, I think merchandisers are now realizing that they are losing money by not having these. For a long time, I think merchandisers kind of looked at things as, okay, the girls buy dolls and boys buy action figures, and we don't need to change that demographic at all because they buy it as we need it to. And if we make a toy of that, then it doesn't matter because it'll just be cutting into our other sales or something. But they're realizing now that, if people see themselves on screen, if they connect to something on screen or in comics or in books, then they're going to want to buy something and own it and play with it at home and make up their own stories and, do all that creative play stuff. And so I think, much like Hollywood, it's changing. It's changing far too slow, but it is changing. I was talking to a friend of mine who does work for a toy company recently, and he actually told me that this fairly big toy company makes decisions 5 years in advance. So how do you react to something? You can't react. You can't say, okay, well, Rey's going to be the biggest character in the world in 2 years' time. I think one of the big ones was Frozen. When Frozen came out, and it's the biggest animated movie of all time, there were no toys. There were just no toys. Like, my sons were both saying, we want toys, and I'm in the stores and there aren't any. And they weren't for women, and they weren't for girls, they weren't for boys. And you see those holes, and after seeing Force Awakens, my son immediately wanted Rey toys, and there weren't any. And it's like,
so true.
Yeah, it's the kick-ass girl with a lightsaber. Where is she? Why can't I buy her?
Yeah,
I
agree with that.
Yeah, and it's they are getting there. It's just taking time, but the large outcry on the internet probably helps.
That is true. The internet has helped in some ways with that. But yeah, with Rey, it's so interesting. You had a pop vinyl, and that's pretty much it, at that time. And I guess, spoilers, sure, we could say that. It's that's why we didn't have the lightsaber stuff. But now, it's taken a while to get the lightsaber stuff now, too. And I'm I want a Rey lightsaber. I want an action figure with her with the lightsaber. She deserves this,
She's a Jedi. Yeah. And it's her story. So, of course, we want that.
Exactly. Now my documentary, something I do focus on is the trope woman in refrigerators. Now, do you feel like this is a trope that we've escaped, or do you feel that it's something that, writers tend to fall under? Or is it, is it, I would say, is it a good or bad thing? But, yeah, do you think it's a trope that writers are still falling under?
I think it's certainly a trope that exists. It's certainly a trope that writers sometimes fall victim to. It's something that I'm very aware of, and it was something that I was aware of going into Injustice. When I first had to, spoilers and apologies to anyone listening, when I first had to have Superman kill Lois and their unborn child, there was no part of me that wanted to do that. When they told me that that's what I had to do, I called my mum and said, Mum, they want me to do this. but you know, and I copped a lot of flack for it, and I think, you know, I understand where that comes from. But you know, if, at some stage you need somebody. I think not every time a woman is in danger and saved by a man can you call it women in refrigerators. You know, you can't kill off women and it only affects the guy. It's only about the guy. It's only about his story. You know, I tried to make that clear in Injustice that what was taken away was their life together. And I hit on that at one stage, that, you know, it was everything that Lois would have been as well, was what the Joker took away in that moment. But it is something that some people fall into, but no story, nothing should be too taboo in writing. If something happens in real life and it happens in abundance, then writers should be able to write about it. It's just then comes down to their ability to write it well and write it in a way that means something, that isn't just a throwaway. You know, you can't, hopefully, generally you can't throw away lies for no meaning.
Yeah, I totally agree with your stance. I didn't even think about the Lois moment in Injustice, but I think that's a good thing I didn't think about it, because it didn't feel like a woman in refrigerators moment. Maybe it fell in some of the tropes line, but you worked in a way that it was Lois's story, even though obviously she didn't continue her story in that actual book, but it was part of Lois's story, and it obviously was very much part of Superman's story. So I think you worked it very well there. So.
I'll just say on that, when I wrote Earth 2, one of the first things I did was bring back Lois, who is dead in that thing, and I brought her back in a robot body, because that was the only way I could do it by talking to people. But she actually steps out of a refrigerator. That was on purpose. Yeah. So there you go. That was something that Nicola and I talked about at the time, and we thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah, and she's my favorite character for Earth too, because I think it's such a cool thing to do with Lois, and something we've never seen with the character. As such a cool story. So now let's move on to Superior Iron Man. One thing I remember when the cover came out for Superior Iron Man, that Rescue was coming back, I was so excited. And so what kind of brought you to the idea of bringing Pepper back as Rescue? Like, why do you think this was the time to do so?
Look, I love that moment. I mean, from reading, you know, when I was reading Fraction's run, when she got that armor, and when, you know, it just made so much sense for her. And I thought too, when I was writing Superior Iron Man, that I needed somebody to go up against Tony, and if it was a standard villain or a standard hero, it wouldn't mean anything. So it had to be Pepper for me. She was the closest, and the one who not only want to sort of save his soul, but also stand up to him. And, you know, which has kind of always been what she's done. So it made sense. And to do that, she had to step into an armor. And to have, you know, to have whatever it was, a past AI version of Tony create that for her, and then the two of them fight over it, was, you know, that was just kind of fun.
Yeah, definitely. So now how did you feel? Because obviously with Secret Wars, you had that 9-month gap or 8-month gap, that we didn't really get to see what happened to Pepper after. Or, I mean, it definitely ended the story, but we haven't seen Pepper, I don't think, since the end of Secret Wars. How do you feel did you feel like you finished that part of the story, or do you want to see more of Pepper, or, you know, even want to write more Tony?
Look, I think I got a chance to read International Iron Man #1 yesterday, which is what Bendis is doing with Alex Maleev at the moment. It's fantastic. Like, I see why they wanted the character to go places like this, and it's really, really good work. I'd love to see Pepper more. I'd love to see her suddenly step out in the rescue armor into a superhero team, but I don't know what the plans are. And when you're doing this sort of work for hire, there's only so much you can do. I did in the 9 issues. You know, we couldn't end it too definitively, because Tony's ending kind of happened in Secret Wars as opposed to in our book. So all I could do was essentially break up Pepper and Tony. So that was the ending that I could do an emotional one rather than a punching in the face one.
Yeah. And I guess last question is, we kind of touched upon it, but is there any characters you really want to write like an ongoing series about, that you just like is like something in your head is like, I just want to write this character, obviously female character, or I mean, we could talk about male characters too, but it's just one that you haven't touched upon that you're just like really dying to write?
Look, I'd love to write Superman without a doubt, and I'd love to write Lois almost just as much, and certainly a book for the two of them. I'd love to write. I think it's one of the best love stories in the world. When I met my wife, she was a crime reporter. So yeah, so I kind of went and accidentally married Lois Lane. So I feel very close to her and close to Lois. And those movies, particularly, you know, Superman #1 was just, it was my movie growing up as a kid. So I'd love, and I've met Lois, and I've just blanked on her name. Wow, how'd I do that?
Hey, at least you met her.
We'll edit that bit. Yeah, so I've met Margot Kidder, and I've chatted to her. I've met her a few times now, and I've chatted to her for a long time, and she's Lois. When you meet her, she's Lois. Like, she's this massive environmental activist, and she's so passionate and so politically aware and so strong, and she's amazing to talk to. And you know, I definitely, if I was writing any female character, I'd love to write a Lois book. But having said that, I mean, I'm loving Wolverine. I'm just, you know, most assignments I'm given, even if I don't love them immediately, I find something to love about them. I think as writers, we owe it to the fans to become fans of the characters we're writing immediately and very quickly and understand them backwards, rather than just dive in and give them a false voice and just have them full of bravado and saying cool things. You know, you owe it to everybody to know the characters as well as the fans do.
And actually, that's a question I have. Were you given Wolverine, or did you pitch all new Wolverine?
I was actually kind of working on something else for Marvel. You know, I was pitching for something else, and then Mark Paniccia, the editor, said, "Hey, how about Wolverine?" And I just went, "Yep," immediately. I was like, "Well, don't worry about that other thing. I'm happy." So straight away, we sort of leapt into it, and I was very happy.
Awesome. So now that we're in the end of this, again, I don't know if I'll be keeping this on my channel or not, but if I am, is there anything that you want to plug that's coming up for you that you would like people to check out?
Don't know. Check out The Deep. It's about a multi-ethnic family of underwater explorers who live on a submarine and their adventures, and it's pure joy. The comics are out. You can get them through Comixology, and there's also the TV series, which has hit Canada, Germany, Australia, and will hit other countries very soon. So I'm also the head writer and creator of that show, and that's a lot of fun. And check out Wolverine. I mean, Wolverine is a good book because the internet says so.
And you have to always trust the internet, guys.
Right.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. I'm going to press the stop broadcast button. So hold on.